you have a photo of it, and we can still scan it that way. Also, it might be nice to just put your card, tape it to the inside of a binder or a notebook that you bring to class to take notes in, and then you always have it here with you. Okay, so also, if you need help with Canvas, please contact my TA or me. The TA's in the office Monday through Wednesday from 11 to 1 p.m. And that's in the Convocation office in the Humanities Building. Okay, quick announcement for next week. We will be celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month, and we will be listening to Brandy Harmer, who's the president of Centro Cívico Mexicano. She will also be joined with some of our Snow College students from the Latin Club, who will be giving us a couple of traditional Mexican dances. So that ought to be really fun. So now we're going to go ahead and get started with our program today. We'll start with the musical number performed by many of our wonderful Snow College the Horn School of Music students. And they're going to be performing a piece called Just Friends. Following the music, we'll hear from our special guest speaker, Matthew Sanders. And let me tell you a little bit about Matt before he gets up here. Matthew Sanders is an associate professor of communication studies at Utah State University. He holds a PhD in organizational communication from the University of Colorado at Boulder. He conducts research in the areas of nonprofit organizations and student empowerment. He is the author of a book, Becoming a Learner, Realizing the Opportunity of Education. And he's been awarded numerous awards on different campuses, just to mention a few. He was named Teacher of the Year for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Utah State University, as well as Outstanding New Faculty Advisor for the National Academic Advising Association, as well as other numerous awards. We are very pleased to have Matthew Sanders with us today, and we'll hear from him right after the music. So take it away.
Thank you. Check, check, check. Just friends, love is no more. Just friends, but not like before. To think of what we've been and not to kiss again seems like pretending it isn't the ending. Two friends, one broken heart. Two friends and one broken heart. We love, we laugh, we cried. Suddenly love died. The story ends and we're just friends. Just friends, just friends, lovers no more. Just friends, but not like before. to kiss again seems like pretending it isn't the ending. Two fans drifting apart. Two fans, one broken heart. We love, we laugh, we cry. Suddenly the dark, the story ends, and we're just friends. Alright, gonna take a minute to introduce everybody. Over to the right we have Nelson on the trombone, Tom Young on the trumpet, Benton on the sax, Hassan on the guitar, Spencer on the bass, Devin on the drums, and my name's Angie. Thanks so much.
Glad to be here with you today. I'm grateful for the invitation to come to Snow College. I've had a great morning. Dr. Ballman took me all over campus, showed me all the great things here. At Utah State, we love Snow College graduates, so my ulterior motive here is to get you all to transfer up to Logan to go to school. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the purpose of college and discuss the question of why you're here. I'm going to start with a story. So at the end of my second year as a professor at Utah State, we had a awards ceremony, honored a bunch of students for the good things that they had done and some of the faculty. And one of the students who had been given an award was my research assistant. And after the ceremony, we had a little mingle with crackers and cheese or whatever. And he says, "Matt, come over here. I want you to meet my mom. Come meet my mom." So I was happy to go over there and brag him up a little bit. And he introduces me to his mom, and she reaches out her hand, and we shake hands. And she just stares at me for what felt like a really long time. It was probably 4 or 5 seconds, but it felt like a really long time. And then she said to me, "You are not what I expected." And I gave an awkward laugh, and I said, "Okay, well, tell me what you were expecting." And she's like, "I don't know, but, you know, like a beard and gray hair and, you know, a bow tie maybe and one of those jackets with a patch on the elbow. You don't look like a professor. You look like my son." And I told her that the beard was a really hard thing for me to do, still is. And whatever does come out pops out red, so it doesn't look very good. But I tell you that story to illustrate my position and hopefully how my position might help you. I've been in college for 17 years straight, as an undergraduate student, as a graduate student, and as a professor. So I've been in college a long time. And so I know what college is, and I know how it works. I know what it can give you, and I know what it won't give you. I know how you can do it well, and I know how you can do it wrong. But even though it's been 17 years that I've had my head buried in this act of educating myself and helping to educate others, it hasn't been that long since I was sitting in your chair. I remember what it's like to start school, the excitement and the energy and the anxiety and the awkwardness of everything, trying to find my way and figure out who I am and what I want to do in the world and how to please my parents with the choice of major and make sure I make the right decisions. I remember all of that. And with that position, I want you to spend some time with me. That was a wrong button. Can you help me there, Sergio? I want you to rethink college and learning with me for a minute. So I gotta make sure I hit the right buttons here. Oh, that goes. Do I need to go the wrong way? I can do this without a slide, I guess. Maybe we're at the end of it. Okay, let's see here. You might have to go backwards through this. Oh, here we go. There we go. That works. I'm not a PowerPoint expert. I apologize for that. That's not as good as a musical number, but we got something to work. This is a statement that was given to me when I was a sophomore. As a student in college, I took a literature class from one of my most influential professors. And this is what he said at the beginning of class and what we talked about every time. The hardest thing for you to know is the thing that you think you already know. The hardest thing to know is that thing that you think you already know. And we did this for two reasons, so that we could either change our behavior by questioning why we do what we do, or that we could know why we were doing it in the first place and give more purpose to our activity. And we did this, and it was really helpful for me, and I want you to do this with me today, to rethink college and learning, because school for you is like air. You've been doing school for a long time, since what, preschool, kindergarten, you go through school, and now high school, and you're into college. You know the drill. Textbooks, syllabi, tests, papers. You know what this is like, and sometimes we don't stop to rethink, what is it that I'm actually doing and why am I doing it? And sometimes when we don't ask those questions, we end up behaving in ways that actually work against our own best interests. We want something, and then we engage it in a way that actually keeps us from achieving it, and that happens a lot in higher education. So I want to rethink this. Now, there's another reason why I think we need to rethink this. Nationally, just less than 50% of students who start college will graduate within 6 years. That's a lot of people who are starting college and not finishing. That's a lot of time and energy and financial investment going into something, and a lot of people not getting out of it what they're hoping. Now, though I don't know what the numbers are here at Snow College, they get a little bit better in Utah, and if we account for people who are transferring from one institution to another, we get numbers that might reach into the mid-50s or towards 60. But that's still a ton of people who are starting school and they're not finishing it. So I think we need to rethink it, because some of the reasons why they don't finish usually relate to meaning. So what I want you to do is to think with me about the importance of asking why, because another reason why I think we need to rethink college and learning is because of the why questions that always get asked. Why do I have to take physics? And why do I have to take philosophy? And why do I have to take English classes? I want to be an engineer. Why do I have to take this communication class? Or why do I have to take biology? We ask this, and you're good at asking these questions, aren't you? You did it in middle school and high school and grade school, and you probably do it now. Now, these questions can be asked in a really sincere way, like help me understand, and they can be asked as complaints. Like, why do I have to eat my broccoli? You know, like my kids ask me that. Like, why do I have to eat vegetables? But any way you ask that question, really a why question is just saying, I don't get it. I'm supposed to do something, I don't see the meaning or the purpose behind it, and I'm frustrated. And I need to know why. And in college, these why questions boil down to really two things, don't they? Why do I have to take classes in things that I'm not interested in, and why do I have to take classes that I don't see connected to a future job? Right? All of those why questions, as I hear them and experience them, boil down to this. And these are good questions. I really want to encourage you to be advocates and users of the question why. Ask your teachers, not in a snarky way, but in a, tell me why this is important, tell me the abilities I'm learning. These are good questions. Why do I need to study philosophy or English or physics or biology or music or art? Why do I have to do this if I'm going to be something else? Okay, and these are really good questions. And I'm going to help you think about these answers to these and start a conversation. I don't have all the answers and the perfect answer, but I have a way to start this conversation and think about it a little bit differently. But I want to do this through an experience that I had and some learning that I did with our freshman student athletes at Utah State University. They invited me to come and speak about becoming a learner, to talk to them about getting the most out of their college education. And so I went there to ask them some questions, because as you can tell from my stunning physique, I'm not an athlete. This is me at the pinnacle of my athletic career at age 11. I was convinced in my own mind as a kid that I was the next coming of John Stockton, for you Utah Jazz fans. All I got was the shorts. I didn't get the genetics or the skill or the opportunity or anything. But I was pretty passionate about sports. I loved playing basketball, shot baskets all the time, whether it was snowy or whether it was hot. I really wanted to be an athlete, but that never happened. My athletic experience consisted of, here's my $25, I want my turn playing, and I want orange slices and Capri Sun at the end. Like, that's my experience. That's my athletic prowess. So here I am standing in front of 150 freshmen, Division I, scholarshiped student athletes whose experience in athletics is completely different from mine. I mean, they left the Capri Sun and orange slices and everyone plays the same, probably when they were 6 or 7, right? They have some great abilities. So I wanted to ask them a question. Why do you do so much exercise and training? Why not just play the game? Help me understand why you do this, because, you just get a football and you go out on the grass and you throw it around, right? You grab a basketball, you pick sides and you play. Why do you do so much exercise and training? And I wanted to know about it in some specific things. So I asked them about exercises like the squat. Okay, I did this once in college. It really hurt. My roommate, my best friend, is a PE teaching major, and he convinced me in our junior year, like, hey, let's go work out every day. It'll make our lives better, and we'll get stronger. And so I did it for a day, and it hurt, and I stopped. This is a hard exercise. And it hurt when I did it. It was painful, but it was worse the next day, right? As I walked up the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, as I walked up the 135 steps from the street to the university, because you're not quite on a hill like maybe some other universities are. But it was painful. And I asked them why they would do this, because in all of the sports that I've watched on TV, I have never seen that on a field of competition, right? Unless we're talking about weightlifting as a sport. This did not happen. This is not happening in baseball. This is not happening in football. This will not happen tonight at the University of Utah, University of Michigan football game. No one's going to throw somebody on their shoulders and go up and down. Why on earth would you do this? Because it doesn't happen in a game. And it was amazing because these student athletes, they just shot up their hands and they had really good answers. And this young man, he was an offensive lineman. He said, look, I got a block for the quarterback. I have to open up room for the run. The thigh is the strongest muscle in my body. I've got to have thrust and push and power, and the squat gets me there. That's why I do squats, so that I can do these things. That was a good answer. And the volleyball players are talking about needing to jump, right? And the basketball players are talking about both jumping and the lateral movement they do quickly. Track, I've got to move my whole body on this, with my thighs, right? With my legs. And the soccer players are talking about kicking the ball and the burst of speed. These are really good answers, right? This is why we do this. They recognize that squats are hard, that they're not fun, because, of course, when you lift weights, you have to do it till it hurts. That seems to be the reason, which is why I quit, right? Because it hurts. I want to stop. And they would do that. And I thought these were great answers. And then, so I asked them about the bench press, because I also did this once, and it hurt equally bad, right? My shoulders and my chest, it was really sore. And I didn't see this happen in the NBA Finals between Steph Curry and LeBron James. Like, let's grab somebody or something and push it up and down. This just doesn't happen. So if it doesn't happen on a field of competition, why on earth would you do it in practice? And again, we got these great answers. Softball players are talking about being able to throw the ball and swing a bat, right? We need strong shoulders and chest muscles to do this. Basketball players are talking about needing to shoot the ball and throwing. Linemen also have to have strong arms to block and push. Gymnasts have to hold the whole weight of their body with their arms, their chest muscles, the bump, the set, the spike. All, again, just quick reactions, easy answer. Duh, why are you asking us this question? Like, this is completely obvious. So then I asked them about running, because I really don't like running nowhere. Doesn't make me happy, right? Why would you do all these drills? Running back and forth or running for long periods of time. And I asked them specific sports about that, like volleyball players. Why would you ever run in practice? You never move more than 7 or 8 feet, right? You just kind of run over here and you hit the ball, and you go over here, you hit the ball, and you step back. And softball players, you're going 60 feet at a time. A basketball court's what, 120 feet or whatever? Like, why would you want to run for a long period of time? Offensive and defensive linemen, you never run. If a lineman runs, they get on Top 10 Sports Center. Not because they're super athletic, because they're actually running. Right? Because their job is to push and pull and knock people over and you're done. They don't have to run. So it's always amazing when, like, look at that guy, he just ran the ball, he ran it 40 yards. Why would you do this? Now, you can probably tell with the way I'm laying out these questions, they were getting annoyed with me. They were feeling a little bit frustrated, like, hey, scrawny, get off the stage. Like, quit asking us why we do this stuff. But they had really good answers. They said, if we want to win, if we want to be celebrating at the end, if we want to become the champions, we have to play harder at the end of the game than we did at the beginning. We have to outlast our opponents. And no, we don't like running. It's not fun, but we need strong lungs, we need lots of wind, we need lots of endurance. If we're going to be victorious, we got to play harder at the end than at the beginning. That's why we run. You might not think a volleyball player has to move much, but it's exhausting. You might not think a basketball court's very long, but running back and forth is exhausting. And they knew why, and I was so impressed with these answers, because this wasn't, well, that's what my coach in high school always said, or this is what my mom did when she played ball. This was, I know that you don't see the connection with this activity. This is what we do, this is why we do it, this is how it connects to me. And I thought it was brilliant. They knew why, and it gave meaning to difficult activities, but the most fundamental activities to their sport. So what's the answer? Why did they have to do so much exercise and training? They wanted to thrive and flourish as athletes. They wanted to thrive and flourish, regardless of the circumstances or the conditions or the competition, regardless of what they faced. They wanted to be able to thrive and flourish, to do whatever they needed to do to react to whatever was happening so that they could be victorious. That's why they were doing that, to thrive and flourish as a human being. This was a great lesson that they taught me. These are people who have dedicated significant amount of their life to their craft, and it was just quick and it was easy. So how does this relate to you? Because I'm not an athlete, so I'm not just here to tell you about athletics. Why do you have to take so many classes in different subjects? Why do you have to take classes that don't apply to a future job that you anticipate having? Why do we do this? We don't have very good answers for this, do we? Right? Our general education, which is the bulk of your degree here at Snow College, we just have to. This is what we're supposed to do, and we talk about it as hoops and hurdles and obstacles, like cold broccoli on your dinner plate. It's better warm, hurry and get it done, right, before you eat it later. It'll be worse. English 1010 is way worse than your last semester than your first. Take it early, right? Get it over with. We think about it in those reasons. The answer to this question is the same as it was for the athletes. You need to learn to thrive and flourish as a human being. That's why you're in college. You need to thrive and flourish in whatever you do. You need to learn how to learn. So when you're doing math, even if you want to be a musician or an artist, you're lifting weights. That's your squats. When you're writing papers in your classes, this is your running. This is your conditioning. All the reading that you have to do, everything that you're doing in college is leading you to learn how to thrive and flourish as a human being. Because in college, we're not training you how to just do something. We're training you to be somebody. And that somebody isn't somebody that we fit into a cog in a machine. This is somebody who can think and solve problems and be quick on their feet. You're here to thrive and flourish. And if you start to think about your classes, why do I have to study science? Why do I have to study art? Why do I have to study history? Why do I have to do all of this? This is developing a mind that can solve problems that are unclear, that don't have previous solutions. This is what you're doing. Because the problems that you're going to work on in your life probably don't exist right now. You're going to spend your life solving problems we don't know about yet, using technologies we haven't invented, responding to economic, political, social conditions that haven't arisen. When you fast forward 30 years, that's what you're going to be working on. And college is training you for that. Not in terms of the professional moving forward, but as the leader, as the person who can think and problem solve. That's why you're here. But we lose that why. We've lost that why in our conversations. We've lost it in our state legislature and all over the country. We've lost it in the media. And we think about college in ways that I think work against our own best interest. So here's the crux of what I want to tell you The primary purpose of college is not to learn a specific set of skills. The primary purpose of college is to become a learner. College is not a job training program. It just isn't. And whatever you learn in college is going to become obsolete, maybe even by the time you graduate in terms of professional skills. I learned this from a very successful engineer. He worked for IBM for a number of years, 30 some odd years. He spent the last part of his career starting a company called Exabyte. His name was Peter Barrett. And at the end of his career, he started this company. He took it from zero to just under $400 million in revenue in 5 years. He was on the cover of Forbes. Very successful guy. And he's speaking to a group of students at the University of Colorado where I studied. And he said, hey, don't sweat the technical stuff of your majors. It's not that big of a deal. Learn it. But it's really not that big of a deal. And I thought, this is a crazy engineer. Like, that's not what an engineer should say. I would expect the absolute opposite from an engineer, particularly one as highly successful as he's been. This is what he says. I graduated from UCLA in 1959 in electronic data storage. I was riding this new wave of storing data electronically. And he said, how many times has the space shrunk in 40 years that it takes to store that data electronically? How many times has that shrunk? And he asked the question, and some people give some answers, and somebody gets bold and they say 1 million, and he just gives this smile and he says, 1 billion times. The space it takes to store data has shrunk 1 billion times over the course of my career. Whatever I learned about electronic data storage in college was obsolete when I graduated. It was obsolete. Now, that story is about 8 years old. So it's probably like 2 billion now, maybe? 1.5 billion. I mean, the space is shrinking. What used to take this whole hall to store now fits in your pocket on a little teeny thing. And the only reason that that's on that teeny thing is so you don't lose the really teeny thing, which is your data. I mean, you think about it. You can hold a terabyte in your hand. A terabyte in 1959 would have been as big as this whole building. And so he said, study cultures and people and learn a language and learn how to sell, learn how to study art. Do things that make you interesting and smart and stretch you and pull you. That's what he wants you to do. That's what he wanted us to do, to really stretch ourselves. So I really want to just stress here that don't make the mistake of looking at your general education, your broad education, as some sort of an obstacle or a hoop, a hurdle to jump over to get to the next thing. Because what makes a scientist interesting isn't just that they know science, but that they're broadly educated. You're here to become an educated person. I know a lot of times people will say, oh, you just need that piece of paper. Just get that piece of paper. But when you're graduating, and everyone's clapping for you, and your parents are there, and they're super proud of you, and they're embarrassing you with an air horn or something when you walk across the stage, it's not the piece of paper they're celebrating, right? They're celebrating you. And not what you learned, but they celebrated who you've become. And you can't just say, well, I got the piece of paper, it's my golden ticket, because it's not. Because when you're in a job interview, it's not that piece of paper, it's just you. It's just you and who you've become. And becoming a learner is not an automatic process. So let me just give you a couple of quick things, ways you might talk about school a little bit differently. And then at the end, I want to leave some time for questions. Your questions are important, and they'll be probably more valuable to this discussion than all of the things that I'm saying. But the first thing is seeing education as an obligation. I have to go to college. Now, some of the research I've done has shown that first-generation students feel this way, and fourth-generation students feel this way. For the same reasons. I'm not going to have the socioeconomic lifestyle that I want if I don't go to college. And a first-generation student is saying, I want to leave this behind and I want to go here. And a fourth-generation student saying, if I want to be what my family's had, then I've got to keep going. But looking at your education as an obligation as opposed to an opportunity is going to make you do the least amount of work and see it in a negative light. The very fact that you are on a college campus puts you among the luckiest people in the whole world. Graduating from college will put you among the most educated people on the planet. And maybe that seems like an exaggeration, but it really isn't. The fact that you have the means and the time to take a space in your life and to just dedicate it to growing yourself and educating yourself is a great blessing that you'll never get again. And taking and seeing that opportunity as, I'm lucky to be able to do this, will change your mindset. Another way that we talk about it that can be frustrating for students and for teachers is what I call the consumer mentality. I'm paying for this, so it better be good. Now, you want to get value out of your education, and you're getting a good value here, the best value in the state. As far as tuition dollars, as far as class sizes, nobody has it better than Snow College. But this idea that I'm paying for it, so it better be good, can sometimes lead us to take less responsibility for our learning. What you're paying for is not an education. You're paying for access and opportunity to the people that can help you do that. If I signed up for a gym membership, and then I went half-heartedly, and I just sat in the back with my fancy stretchy pants, and I drank Mountain Dew and sucked the cream out of Twinkies, and 4 years later I say, don't you go to that gym, that place is a ripoff, look at me, right? That's absolutely absurd, isn't it? But I've seen a lot of students do that. They just think that they're paying for something, but all you're paying for is trainers and equipment. I mean, I've walked this campus this morning, and your tuition money, that's paying for excellent teachers, great facilities, and opportunities for you to do what you want to do. But whether or not that works for you is up to you, right? You have to take advantage of that. Another way we talk about it in unuseful ways is, I'm in the real world. Have you ever said that? In the real world, if you talk about the real world outside of college, then what are you assuming about this world? It's fake. It's like a video game, right? I'm just an avatar here. Now, your life is not going to be desks and lecture halls, unless you grow up to be a nerd like me and all your professors. But even then, it'll be a little bit different. A lot of times students will think, oh, well, in the real world, I won't show up to class late, or in the real world, I'll get prepared, or in the real world, I'll do this. But this is real. It's as real as anything else. And I've had students say, I know I don't ever come to class on time, but when I get a job in the real world, I'll be to work on time. No, you won't. Because you couldn't do it now, you won't do it later. You'll still struggle. Or people who cheat in college, and then they'll say, well, in the real world, I wouldn't do that at my job. You probably will. Right? These are habits of being that we develop. So please don't make the assumption that somehow what we do here isn't fake, even though it's kind of a timeout. The blessing of a timeout in your life where you focus on yourself. Please see this as real. Everything that you're doing is developing habits and abilities that move you forward. I hope that this is a good framework for thinking about college, to realize that you're here to develop yourself as a learner. At the end, it's really who you become that matters, more than what you know how to do. The average person will change careers somewhere between 5 and 7 times. Those are career changes, not job changes, not IBM to Google to Apple. This is school teacher to police officer to business person. Right? I mean, these are career changes. You don't have to go back to college because it's already assumed that you've done that. I hope that's helpful. I'd like, if we could turn the lights up just a little bit. We have about 10 minutes, and I just want to take your questions and ask you what you think. You don't have to say, gee whiz, that was swell. You can say, what about this? If you didn't think about that, you can offer a critique. But what questions do you have? What thoughts have come to you? What would you like to say? Yes, please.
Because you said on average they would change their career 5 to 7 times. Would you think that's practical?
Do I think it's practical?
Should we aim to not change it?
I think the way the economy is moving is kind of pushing in that change direction. I mean, it used to be that the company had significant loyalty to you and you did to the company. And you have parents or grandparents that spent all their career at one institution. And just the way that employment's going, it's probably not going to be the case. So if it works out for you, that's great. But you need to be prepared for the change. Even if it's not a career change. I mean, Professor Ballman and I were talking, and we were walking through one of the buildings, and he said, this is the building that I first connected to the internet, where I first connected to the internet. Okay, he's not that old, right? It's not been that long. I sent my first email in 1999. You think about all the people who are in the middle of their careers and this thing called the internet explodes, and their whole career, their whole thing has to change. Think about banking. Like all of a sudden it's online, all these kind of things. It's going to happen in your life. It happens about every 40 years. There's a paradigm-shifting technology. If history replays itself, it'll happen to you too, right in mid-career. So, good question. Other questions? Yes?
You're saying we should be well-rounded. And I'm just curious, how would you suggest we do that? Should we have a specific focus, take certain classes, or how?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, when I choose classes, I wouldn't say, how do I fill my boxes, even though you've got to check off the right boxes. I would say, who do I want to be and what kind of things do I want to develop? And if you have an interest in politics, then you can take the classes that might connect to that. If you're interested in the environment, then you can take the outdoor literature class, right? You can find classes that help you build that way. You can ask that question instead of what fits in the box. The other thing I would suggest you do is do things that stretch yourself. If you've never done anything musical, then try to find a way to engage in something that's musical, because your brain will start thinking differently. If you really don't like math or you stay away from it, then stretch yourself that way. And these opportunities to stretch and round yourself out don't just happen in the classroom. More than half of them are going to happen outside the classroom. But don't get in your comfort zone. Get out of that comfort zone and push yourself. I got an elective, I'm going to do this. And it's going to be different and challenging, and I'm going to stretch. And then you're going to find those, you do those things, and some of those things are going to become hobbies and passions and interests that you never knew you had until you sat in that class and that professor opened that world up to you. Does that answer your question? Yes? How did I figure out I wanted to be a professor? I loved college so much. I went to Rick's College when it was a 2-year school, so it's very similar to Snow College, a 2-year junior college. I just loved being here. I just loved being at college, and I didn't love being in high school. I was a decent student. I was about a B+, A- student in high school, but I was never fully comfortable there. And I got to college, and I just really liked it. I liked learning. And then I found out that I liked teaching. I liked being up in front of people. And then I said, well, where can I go in life where I can do that and get a salary and be happy? And college seemed to be the great fit. And then the more I went on, the more I felt like that's what I wanted to do. Follow your passions. Do what you love, because you'll be good at it. If you don't love it, you won't be very good at it. And other people will love it, and they'll be so much better than you because they care. Does that answer your question? There was a hand in the back. I would recommend going somewhere where you can have access to professors. My personal opinion is I would not go to a huge research university where all of your teachers are going to be graduate students. Right? That's why I like Utah State, because undergraduate students have a lot of access to their professors like you do here. You don't get that at University of Southern California or at Harvard. Like, you won't get that. Go somewhere where there's good teachers, where there's a good atmosphere, and where you can have some connection to them, large or small. It really does. The institution doesn't matter so much. It's how well you did when we were there. The top students at any school are as good as the top students at Harvard and Yale and Stanford and Columbia. So make that choice, but I don't think the prestige is the most important thing. I think it's who will be teaching me? What kind of access do I have to them? That's my personal opinion. But as you're looking for other schools, I would talk to your faculty, talk to people, and ask them and get their opinion on that too. Yes?
How do you find value in subjects that don't interest you?
Oh, that's a great question. How do I find value in something that I just don't care? Right? This goes back to the exercise thing. So that's math for me. I can do math. I just don't find a lot of personal joy in it. But some of you find great joy in math, don't you? Like, I just love numbers. One of the students I talked to this morning, I love numbers, I love math, I just get it and it works for me. So that's when I turn my mind and say, this is exercise. I'm here to get smart. I've got 16 weeks, I've got math, I've got to learn calculus, and I'm doing it for the sake of getting stronger, right? That's one way to do it. The other way is to say, I'm going to try to find the beauty in this. So if I'm not interested in history, can I do some things to get interested in it? Not that this has to be my lifelong passion, but enough to get me through 16 weeks. My roommate was like that. He's always like, took anatomy and physiology, and then he'd roll up his sleeve and be like, look at this, look how this works. You know, like, and he was just curious. It was like getting into your kindergarten mind. You tell a kindergartner, hey, let's go and do this for an hour. They're just like, okay, like, let's go. And then you're like, isn't this so cool? And you can talk, like, yeah, this is really cool, right? So I think you have to get yourself there. But if it's really not interesting, I just go down to this is my exercise, this is good for me. And the math isn't that interesting, but learning to think and problem solve analytically in a different language, because math is a different language, right? Just like music, that's going to make you smarter. That's how I do it. You don't have to love it, and it doesn't have to be entertaining. I learned this the other day from a speaker at Utah State. Don't make the mistake of using entertainment as the measuring stick by which to judge the value of what you're learning. Too often we think, oh, well, is it entertaining? Sometimes learning things is a little bit boring. Sometimes things can be a little tedious, but it still has value to it. I hope that's a decent answer. That's a good question to ask lots of other teachers as well. Other questions? We got time for a couple more, I think. Yes? Yes, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, those are important fields, and they're in growing importance, and we need more people doing that. Absolutely. I think a computer programming minor would be a great thing. I think that's the new Latin, right? It's the new language that runs the world. So don't run from STEM, science and technology, like go for those careers. Do what you love, but don't just stay away from them because they're hard. That's where lots of the jobs and things are going. That's part of what you need to figure out and do. So those are important. That's where lots of the funding are going. That's where lots of good jobs are. And a lot of people think, I don't want to code. I don't want to do that stuff. And then they actually start doing it, and they find a love for it. They find a passion. That's a very good point, very valid point. You're right. Let me look at my clock, because I don't want to keep you a minute past. All right, I don't have any more time for questions, but I can answer some individually if you have others. Thank you for the invitation, and I wish you all good luck. Thank you.